Welcome to the CRS Elevation Certificate Training Series on how to fill out an elevation certificate correctly, specifically how to do it for CRS purposes. This is the 6th video in this series and will cover sections H and I of the form. For information on where to find a copy of the current elevation certificate form, what it's used for, and why it's so important in CRS communities, please refer to the first video in our series, How to Fill Out an Elevation Certificate Correctly, Section A. Sections H and I are brand new sections in the 2023 EC. They are intended to be used only for insurance purposes, and therefore not required for CRS purposes, and will not be reviewed as part of your CRS submittal. However, we still want to show you how to complete these sections if you ever find yourself doing it for a property owner or advising them how to do it. Sections H and I can be completed by the owner, someone authorized by the owner to fill it out for them, or by the local floodplain management official, also referred to as the local official. To fill out the information in this section, you do not need to use surveying equipment. The measurements can be taken using a simple tape measure since you are just obtaining the elevation of a floor above outside lowest adjacent grade, or LAG. If someone other than the local official completes this section and you see it as the local official, be sure that sections A, B, and I are also completed. If you as the local official sign it, be sure sections A, B, and G are completed. You will check G3 in section G and then provide your contact information, sign and date section G, and add any comments in there as well. You can refer to our video on section G for further information. If someone has an existing building and wants a no-cost EC, since it can be done by anyone, to see if they can improve their insurance rating, section H can be filled out and provided to the insurance agent. FEMA's current rating methodology now uses a new term, first floor height, as a critical variable in the rating methodology for insurance policies. ECs are no longer required for insurance purposes, as FEMA uses existing data sources to determine a rating and ultimately a premium for flood insurance policies. However, the elevation certificate can be used in many circumstances to provide a better rating. In response to this change with insurance rating, the new elevation certificate, through Section H, offers a property owner the ability to tell the insurance agent exactly how high the first floor height is, so more accurate information is used when rating a property, and potentially results in a lower rate. The first thing we'll want to do is define exactly what first floor height is, and then show you examples of how to determine it using the new foundation type diagrams in the elevation certificate instructions. Taken directly from the flood insurance manual, the first floor height is the height of the building's first floor above the adjacent grade. Grade refers to the lowest adjacent grade, or LAG. Generally speaking, the higher the elevation of a building's first floor, the less flood damage is likely to incur. The elevation in relation to LAG is captured on the form in H1A for building diagrams 1A, 1B, 3, and 5 through 9, or it is captured in H1B for building diagrams 2A, 2B, 4, and 6 through 9. You'll need to be sure feet or meters is indicated and check the box for above the LAG to verify that this is the case. Section H also captures the location or height of the machinery and equipment, or M&E, servicing the building. This is done in field H2. The mitigation discount for M&E is tied to this elevation, so this is very important. Indicate yes if all of the following machinery and equipment servicing the building, inside or outside, are elevated to at least the height indicated by the H2 arrow in the foundation type diagrams. For building coverage, the M&E to pay attention to is the central air conditioner, furnace, heat pump, water heater, and elevator. For contents-only insurance coverage, just the washers and dryers and food freezers need to be elevated to the height indicated by the H2 arrow. If you want coverage for both the building and contents, you'll need all 7 of those items at the height indicated by the H2 arrow in the diagrams. Now, how do we determine the first floor height for a building, and how do we determine the height required for the M&E mitigation discount? We need to look at page 16 of 19 of the EC form. It provides examples for you for each type of building diagram. Let's go through each of them. Let's start at the top left and work our way through each one. For the slab-on-grade foundation type, the first lowest floor can be thought of as the first living floor above the lowest adjacent grade. This elevation is indicated by H1A in the diagram. Be sure to only fill in H1A on the EC. Your building's rating will be applied to this floor, while your M&E must be on the next higher floor, or where it shows H2 to receive the mitigation discount. The building diagrams entered in A7 on the EC and shown starting on page 17 of 19 on the EC that correspond to this type of foundation are 1A, 1B, and 3. For basement type foundations, the building's rating will be based on the floor above the basement or that first living floor above grade. This elevation above lag must be noted in H1B. Notice the M&E, the H2 arrow, must be on the same floor to receive a discount for a basement foundation. The building diagrams that correspond to this type of foundation are 2A, 2B, and 4. Now let's flip over to the other side of the illustration and look at posts, piles, or pier foundations without any enclosures under the elevated floors, or diagram 5 buildings. For this type of foundation, the building's rating will be based on that first elevated floor since it's the first one above grade. The M&E must also be at this elevation to receive the discount since the risk is much less with an elevated floor. So the same elevation will be used for both H1A and H2 on the form. The next foundation type is similar to the previous one, a posts, piers, and pile foundation, but this one has an enclosure under the elevated floor. This is a diagram 6 building. It doesn't matter if it is built with breakaway walls or not, the elevations marked as H1A and H1B need to be completed. The elevation needed to determine the M&E discount is the elevated floor, as shown by the arrow for H2. The next foundation type is another elevated building with enclosures, but the foundation is a solid foundation wall. This is typically known as a diagram 7 building. This foundation asks you to show the elevation for both the floor right at the grade, H1A, and the next higher floor, or the elevated floor in H1B. H2 is that elevated floor for the M&E mitigation discount. Lastly, we come to the crawlspace foundation type. A building which has its crawlspace floor at or above grade, a diagram 8 building, is an elevated building. A building which has its crawlspace floor below grade on all 4 sides is known as a subgrade crawlspace, a diagram 9 building, and is not an elevated building. The elevation needed to determine the M&E discount is the elevated floor, as shown by the arrow for H2. For insurance purposes, the first floor height for both the diagram 8 and 9 buildings is that first living floor, or the next higher floor above the crawlspace area, as shown by the H1B arrow. In a diagram 8 building, the crawlspace floor or bottom floor is at or above grade and is entered in H1A. In a diagram 9 building, because the crawlspace floor is below grade on all sides, the height of that bottom floor should not be recorded. Write in A in field H1A. The foundation type diagrams make filling out this section fairly easy once you determine the correct foundation for the building. Once you've got that, you just find the matching diagram on page 16 of the EC instructions and take the measurements required based on the diagram. Section I is the signature section for Section H. The person that completed Section H must provide all their contact information here and be sure to sign it, date it, and provide a way to be contacted, either their phone number or email address. If you, as a local official filling this out for a homeowner, do not sign and date section I, sign and date section G instead. And always be sure the rest of the building information in section A and B are filled out correctly. This section works much like section F of the form. If there are any attachments that need to be included with the form, please check the box. And be sure to include any comments that help to clarify and/or explain the building's characteristics. One last reminder about these sections. Neither are required for CRS purposes, so we will not be looking at these sections, but they are critical to determine the building's flood risk for insurance purposes under FEMA's current rating methodology, so please be sure to complete them correctly. This concludes training on how to fill out sections H and I of the elevation certificate correctly. Please visit the other important training videos we have, General Issues with ECs Parts 1 and 2, and How to Correct an Elevation Certificate. Thank you for watching and learning.